I froze. My hand hovered over the air horn, but I didn't pull it. 3,000 sailors stood motionless in the pouring rain, but the 4-star Admiral at the podium wasn't looking at them. He was staring at me. I was 50 yards away, idling a mud-cake Peterbilt behind the VIP tent, an MP's Glock leveled at my temple. The Admiral stopped mid-sentence. He dropped his notes, stepped off the platform, and walked straight toward my grill, ignoring the mud ruining his dress shoes. As he got closer, the rank disappeared. I wasn't looking at a commander anymore. I was looking at the only man who knew the truth about the scar on my ribs. He stopped 5 feet from my bumper, locked eyes with me, and mouthed 3 words that made my blood run cold. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? Drop your city and mile marker in the comments. We love seeing how far our stories travel. The rain had been coming down in sheets since I crossed the state line. A relentless icy deluge that turned the interstate into a slick ribbon of black glass. My wipers were fighting a losing battle, slapping a frantic rhythm against the windshield of the Peterbilt. I was hauling a specialized flatbed load, ceremonial equipment, oversized historical flags, and a restored vintage artillery piece destined for the naval station's centennial celebration. It was a high-priority run, the kind that came with a lot of paperwork and a strict deadline, but usually that meant they waved you through the gates with a smile. Tonight, it felt different. The air was thick, heavy with electricity and the smell of ozone. I checked my mirrors. Darkness, just the red glow of my running lights reflecting off the wet asphalt. I was Jack Mercer to the shipping clerk who handed me the manifest, but on the road, I was Redline. Just a guy trying to keep the rubber side down and the bills paid. I shifted gears, feeling the familiar rumble of the transmission vibrate through the floorboards. My back was aching. An old, dull throb near the shoulder blade that always flared up when the barometric pressure dropped. I rubbed it absent-mindedly, keeping my eyes scanning the spray kicking up from the sedan in front of me. I wasn't looking for trouble. I never was. I just wanted to drop the load, get a hot coffee, and find a quiet place to park for my 10-hour reset. But the road has a way of laughing at your plans. I pulled up to the commercial gate of the naval station around 2100 hours. The queue was backed up, red taillights blurring in the mist. It took 40 minutes just to get to the check-in shack. When I finally hissed the air brakes to a halt at the guard post, the MP looked like he'd been drowning for hours. He was young, barely old enough to shave, water dripping off the brim of his cover. He took my ID, scanned it, checked the manifest, and frowned. "You're not on the list for this gate, driver," he said, shouting over the roar of the rain and the idling diesel engine. "Check again," I said, leaning out the window, the cold rain instantly soaking my sleeve. "Manifest says Gate 4. This is Gate 4. "Gates closed for the ceremony prep," he shouted back. "VIPs only. You need to go around to the South Logistics entrance. That's 5 miles back. Take the exit, loop around." I looked at the fuel gauge. I looked at the clock. "Son, I've got a 53-foot spread axle with an oversized permit. I can't just U-turn this rig on a 2-lane access road. If I back out now, I'm blocking your outbound traffic for 20 minutes. He hesitated. He knew I was right. He looked back at the guard shack, then at his radio. "Hold on." He made a call. I watched him. He looked nervous. He wasn't the problem. The problem was whoever was squawking back at him on the other end. I saw his posture stiffen. He nodded, said, "Aye, sir," about 4 times and turned back to me. "Look, the OOD officer of the deck says let you through, but you have to park in the holding lot behind the grandstands until the morning. Do not, repeat, do not, unload until 0600. "Fine by me," I said. "Just open the gate." He waved me through. I ground the gears into first and rolled forward. I should have known it was too easy. The base was a maze of concrete barriers and temporary fencing set up for the big event the next day. I navigated the rig slowly, the tires crunching on wet gravel. I found the holding lot. It wasn't really a lot. It was a mud patch behind a row of temporary bleachers and a massive white tent where the brass would be sitting. I killed the lights but kept the engine idling to keep the heater running. The cab was my sanctuary. It smelled like stale coffee and diesel, the only home I had these days. I poured a cup from my thermos and watched the rain. Through the gaps in the bleachers, I could see activity. Sailors running cables, setting up chairs. A few officers standing under a canopy, pointing and shouting. One voice cut through the rain. It was loud, sharp, and dripping with that specific kind of arrogance that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I rolled my window down a crack. I told myself I was just letting in some fresh air. Truth was, I was listening. I don't care what the regulations say, petty officer. I want this stage cleared now. I leaned forward. About 30 yards away, near the back entrance of the VIP tent, a man in a pristine raincoat, commander's rank on the shoulder boards, was screaming at a woman. She was enlisted, maybe a second-class petty officer, soaked to the bone, no raincoat. She was standing at attention, shivering, taking the verbal beating without flinching. "Sir, the safety protocols for the electrical rigging require," she started, her voice shaking. "Do not quote protocols to me," the commander roared. He stepped into her personal space. He was a big guy, broad-shouldered, the kind who spent more time in the gym than in the field. "I am the protocol officer for this event. If the Admiral walks out here tomorrow and sees a single cable out of place, it's not my head that rolls, it's yours. Are we clear?" "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "Then move it. Pick it up yourself if you have to." He gestured to a heavy junction box sitting in the mud. It was industrial grade, probably weighed 80 pounds. The girl looked at it, then at him. She was small, strong probably, but that box was awkward and slick with mud. "Sir, I need a team lift for that," she said. "It's against OSHA standards to—" "I am giving you a direct order." The commander slammed his hand against the tent pole. "Move the damn box!" I felt that old heat rising in my chest, the kind I tried to keep buried under miles of asphalt and country music. I took a sip of coffee. "Stay out of it, Jack," I told myself. "Not your base, not your war, not your problem." I watched her bend down. She gripped the handles of the box. She tried to lift with her legs, but the mud was slippery. She struggled, her boots sliding. She got it up a few inches, gritted her teeth, and then her foot slipped. She went down hard, the box slamming into the mud, splashing dirty water all over the commander's polished shoes. The silence that followed was instant. The commander looked down at his shoes. Then he looked at her. She was scrambling to get up, apologizing. "I am so sorry, sir. I slipped. He didn't speak. He reached out and grabbed her by the terrifyingly fragile material of her uniform collar, jerking her upright. "You clumsy, incompetent little—" He shook her. Actually shook her. That was it. The line. He'd just crossed it. I didn't make a conscious decision to move. My body just did it. I popped the air brake, opened the door, and swung down from the cab. I didn't run. Running attracts attention. I walked. A steady, heavy pace, my boots thudding against the wet concrete. I closed the distance in 10 seconds. "Hey!" I called out. My voice wasn't a shout. It was a low rumble, the sound of a jake brake engaging on a steep grade. The commander spun around. He didn't let go of the girl. He looked at me, a 6'3" trucker in a flannel shirt and oil-stained jeans, rain dripping off my nose. "Who the hell are you?" he snapped. "This is a restricted area. Get back in your truck." I stopped 6 feet from him. I looked at his hand, still bunching up the fabric of the petty officer's collar. She looked terrified, not of the discipline, but of him. She was trembling. "You ask me who I am after you let go of her," I said. He laughed. A short, disbelief-filled bark. "Excuse me, do you know who I am? I'm Commander Sterling. I'm the Chief of Staff for this installation, and you are trespassing." "I'm a delivery driver," I said calmly. "And where I come from, you don't put your hands on a woman unless you're pulling her out of a fire. Let her go." Sterling's face went red. He shoved the girl backward. She stumbled, catching herself on a tent pole. He stepped toward me, chest puffed out. He was used to intimidation. He was used to people seeing the rank and shrinking. He didn't know that to me, rank was something you earned in the mud, not something you wore on a sleeve. "You listen to me, you grease monkey," Sterling hissed, poking a finger into my chest. "I can have you arrested, your truck impounded, and your license revoked before you can blink. You made a mistake coming over here." "The only mistake," I said, my voice dropping an octave, "was you thinking nobody was watching." He swung. It wasn't a tactical strike. It was an anger swing, a haymaker aimed at my jaw, fueled by entitlement and rage. He expected me to flinch. He expected me to take it. I didn't. I stepped inside the arc of his punch. My left hand came up, catching his forearm, parrying it to the side. At the same time, I checked his shoulder with my right, a hard shove that used his own momentum against him. He spun, losing his balance on the wet grass. He didn't fall, but he stumbled back 3 steps, looking shocked. "You struck an officer," he screamed, his voice cracked. "MPs, security, get over here." The petty officer, Jimenez, her name tag read, grabbed my arm. "Sir, please, you have to go. He'll ruin you. Please." "Get behind me," I told her. 2 MPs who had been patrolling the perimeter came running around the corner of the tent. They saw Sterling red-faced and pointing, and a big trucker standing his ground. They didn't ask questions. They drew batons. "Get on the ground," the first MP yelled. "Face down, hands behind your back." "I'm not getting on the ground in this mud," I said, keeping my hands visible but not raised in surrender. "And I'm not the one you should be arresting." "I said get down!" The MP lunged. He swung the baton at my leg, a perineal strike meant to dead-leg me and drop me. I checked the kick with my shin. It hurt, but I'd taken worse, and grabbed the baton mid-swing. I twisted my hips, wrenching the stick from his grip, and tossed it into the mud. The second MP tackled me from the side. We hit the ground. The mud was freezing. I rolled, using my weight to flip him. I didn't strike him. I didn't want to hurt these kids. They were just following orders from a bad officer. I secured the MP's wrist, applying a joint lock just enough to make him freeze, and pinned him to the ground with my knee. "Stay down," I growled. The first MP, the one I disarmed, was backing up, reaching for his radio. "Officer needs assistance. Multiple assailants. Behind the VIP tent. Shots fired." "No shots fired," Jimenez screamed. "He didn't shoot." But the radio call was already out. "Shots fired" is the magic phrase that turns a skirmish into a war zone. Sterling was smiling now. He backed away, wiping rain from his face. "You're done," he sneered. "You are buried." Sirens wailed. Blue lights flashed against the wet canvas of the tents. I stood up, releasing the MP. I backed up toward my truck. I wasn't running, but I needed cover. I needed a position. I positioned myself between the grill of the Peterbilt and the tent entrance. "Jimenez," I said without looking at her. "Get out of here." "I'm not leaving you," she said. She was crying now, but she stood there, brave kid. 3 security forces cruisers skidded around the gravel lot, blocking the exit. 4 doors opened. 4 M4 carbines were pointed at my chest. "Driver, hands! Let me see your hands!" I raised them slowly to shoulder height. "I'm unarmed," I shouted. "On your knees!" I stayed standing. The mud was sucking at my boots. The rain was deafening. I said, "On your knees." Sterling walked over to the lead security officer. He attacked me. He attacked Petty Officer Jimenez. "He's crazy. I think he's on drugs. Take him down. Use force, if necessary." The lead officer looked at me, then at Sterling. "Sir, is he armed?" "I saw a knife," Sterling lied. "He has a knife." The tension ratcheted up a notch. Fingers tightened on triggers. The laser sights danced on my chest. I took a breath. This was it. This was how it ended. Not in a blaze of glory, but in a muddy parking lot because of a liar with a heavy collar. "I don't have a knife," I said calmly. "Check the cameras." "There are no cameras back here," Sterling said, his voice low, triumphant. "Step forward," the lead officer commanded. "Last warning." I didn't move. I couldn't let them cuff me. Once I was in cuffs, Sterling would control the narrative. I'd be in a cell before anyone asked what really happened. I had to buy time. I had to stall. "If you come at me," I said, my voice steady, "you better bring more than 4 guys." It was a bluff, mostly, but it made them hesitate. And in that hesitation, the music started. The Star-Spangled Banner. The ceremony had begun. Just 50 yards away, through the thin fabric of the tent, the brass band struck up the anthem. The security team froze. You don't move during the anthem. Even in a standoff, the training kicks in. We all stood there, statues in the rain, weapons raised while the music played. Sterling looked furious. He wanted me down now, but he couldn't scream orders over the anthem without looking like a disgrace. He checked his watch. He waited. The music ended. The silence returned. "Now!" Sterling hissed. "Take him!" The security team advanced. I braced myself. I shifted my weight to my back foot. I was calculating angles. If the first one came high, I'd duck under. Then a voice boomed over the PA system. The Admiral. He was starting his speech. "We stand here tonight," the Admiral's voice echoed, distorted slightly by the weather, "to honor those who hold the line, the silent ones, the ones who carry the weight when the world isn't watching." The irony was bitter. I watched the security team close in, 10 feet, 8 feet. "Wait!" Jimenez yelled, stepping in front of me. "Stop!" Sterling grabbed her arm and yanked her violently aside, throwing her into the mud. "Get out of the way!" That was the second mistake. I didn't wait for them to reach me. I moved. I lunged forward, not at the soldiers, but at Sterling. I wanted him. If I was going down, I was taking the source of the rot with me. The security lead tackled me. I hit the ground hard, mud filling my mouth. A boot came down on my back. I struggled, bucking like a wild horse. I threw one guy off, scrambled to my knees. Another one grabbed my jacket. I spun out of it, the fabric tearing. We were a tangled mess of limbs and shouting, rolling right into the side of the tent. The canvas wall shuddered. "Subdue him!" Sterling shrieked. "Tase him!" I saw the yellow taser cartridge. I rolled left. The probes missed me by an inch, hitting the tire of my truck. We were making too much noise. The fight was spilling out from behind the tent. We crashed through a barrier of folding chairs. And that's when the Admiral stopped speaking. That's when he saw us. That's when the world stopped. I was on one knee, breathing hard, mud covering my face, blood trickling from a cut above my eye. 2 security officers were holding my arms. Sterling was standing over me, panting, a smug grin on his face. The Admiral walked through the rain. The crowd parted. The silence I described earlier, that terrifying, absolute silence, descended. The Admiral stopped. He looked at Sterling. He looked at the MP with the gun. Then he looked at me. He narrowed his eyes. He leaned in slightly, squinting through the downpour. I saw the recognition hit him like a physical blow. His face went pale. His mouth opened slightly. Sterling stepped forward, snapping a salute. "Admiral, my apologies for the disruption. We have a drunk driver who trespassed and assaulted my staff. We are removing him now." The Admiral didn't even look at Sterling. He kept his eyes locked on mine. He didn't return the salute. "Let him go," the Admiral said. His voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. "Sir?" Sterling blinked. "He's dangerous. I said, let him go." The Admiral roared, the sound echoing off the metal bleachers. The security officers released me instantly, stepping back as if I were radioactive. I stood up slowly. I wiped the blood from my eye. I straightened my flannel shirt. The Admiral took one more step toward me. He looked at the scar on my neck, the one I got pulling a pilot out of a burning chopper in a valley nobody is allowed to talk about. He looked me in the eye. "Red line," he whispered. I nodded once. "Hello, Casper." Sterling gasped. Casper was the Admiral's call sign from 20 years ago, a classified call sign. The Admiral looked at Sterling, then back at me. "3 words," he said softly. "You said you'd never come back." "I was delivering flags," I said, my voice raspy. "Just flags. 3 words," the Admiral repeated. He looked at the crowd, then at me. Tell them. I shook my head. No. Tell them, he commanded. But there was a smile ghosting his lips. Duty, I said. Honor. I looked at Sterling. Mercy. The Admiral turned to Sterling. The look on his face could have stripped paint off a battleship. Mercy, the Admiral repeated, testing the word like it was a foreign coin. He stared at Sterling, his eyes hard enough to cut glass. Commander, do you know where I learned that word? Sterling was vibrating with a mix of fear and indignation. He looked at the mud on his expensive raincoat, then at the MPs who had lowered their weapons, and finally at me. He couldn't process it. In his world, power was rank, and rank was a uniform. The idea that a man in grease-stained denim could command the attention of a 4-star admiral broke his brain. Admiral, Sterling stammered, his voice climbing in pitch. With all due respect, this man is a civilian, a trespasser. He assaulted a federal officer. I don't care who you think he is. Think? The Admiral didn't shout this time. His voice dropped to a terrifyingly calm register. You think I'm mistaken? I think you've been misinformed by a con artist. Sterling pointed a shaking finger at me. Look at him. He's nobody. And I am not going to let him disrupt a centennial ceremony because of some mistaken identity. He turned to the MPs. Sergeant, I gave you a direct order. Arrest this man. If you don't, I will have your stripes on my desk by morning. The sergeant looked at the Admiral. The Admiral didn't nod. He didn't shake his head. He just watched, waiting to see if his people knew the difference between a loud voice and a leader. The sergeant holstered his weapon. Sir, he said to Sterling, I take my orders from the Admiral. Sterling's face went purple. Fine, then I'll do it myself. He reached for the baton the MP had dropped in the mud earlier. It was a desperate, stupid move, born of pure panic. He wasn't thinking about safety. He was thinking about regaining control. He lunged at me, swinging the baton wildly, aiming for my head. Watch out, Jimenez screamed. I didn't need the warning. I'd been watching his eyes. I stepped in, not away. When a man swings wide like that, he opens his center line. I caught his wrist with my left hand, the impact jarring my shoulder, and drove my right forearm into his chest. It wasn't a strike to injure. It was a check to stop his momentum. I twisted his wrist, forcing the baton from his grip. It splashed into a puddle. I didn't let go. I shoved him back hard. He sprawled into the mud, sliding 3 feet, landing in a heap at the feet of the petty officer he'd abused minutes ago. Stay down, I said, my voice flat. You're embarrassing the uniform. Sterling scrambled up, spitting mud. You... But before he could launch a second wave of stupidity, a loud crack echoed through the lot. It sounded like a gunshot, but deeper, metallic. The wind had picked up. The storm wasn't just rain anymore. It was a gale. The heavy canvas of the VIP tent was whipping violently, snapping like a sail in a hurricane. Above us, the temporary lighting rig, the one Jimenez had tried to warn him about, groaned. The cable! Jimenez yelled, pointing up. The anchor point is giving! I looked up. The main support cable for the stage lights, a thick steel line under immense tension, was vibrating. The junction box Sterling had forced Jimenez to move was the counterweight. By moving it, he destabilized the entire corner of the rig. Get back! I roared, throwing my arms out to push the MPs back. Snap! The cable parted with a sound like a whip crack. The entire lighting truss, 1,000 pounds of steel and glass, swung loose, arcing down like a pendulum, directly toward the Admiral. He was looking at me, not the rig. He didn't see it coming. I didn't think. The red line didn't think. It just moved. I launched myself off my back foot, sprinting the 10 feet between me and the Admiral. The mud slicked under my boots, but I dug in, my shoulder dropping. I hit the Admiral at full speed, a tackle meant to clear the kill zone. Move! We hit the ground together, rolling through the wet grass just as the truss smashed into the earth where he had been standing. Crash! Glass shattered. Metal groaned. The ground shook. A shard of aluminum casing sliced through the air, embedding itself in the tire of my truck with a hiss of escaping air. Silence returned, broken only by the rain and the hissing tire. I lay there for a second, staring at the grey sky, breathing hard. The Admiral was under me, pinned by my weight. "You okay, Casper?" I wheezed. He coughed, blinking rain out of his eyes. "I'm getting too old for this, Jack." I rolled off him and offered a hand. He took it, his grip iron-hard, and I hauled him to his feet. We looked at the wreckage. If we hadn't moved, that truss would have cut us in half. Sterling was standing by the tent, white as a sheet. He wasn't looking at us. He was looking at his car, a government-issued sedan parked near the exit. He started backing away. "It wasn't my fault," he muttered, loud enough to hear. "The wind. It was the wind. It was the ballast," Jimenez said, her voice trembling but clear. She stepped forward, pointing at the displaced junction box. "You made me move the ballast, sir. That's what held the line." Sterling's eyes darted around. He saw the Admiral glaring at him. He saw the MPs realizing the truth. He saw the walls closing in. Panic is a dangerous thing. It makes men do irrational things. Sterling turned and bolted for his car. "Hey!" the sergeant yelled. "Halt!" Sterling ignored him. He jumped into the sedan, fired the engine and slammed it into reverse. He wasn't looking. He just wanted out. He gunned it, the tires spinning on the wet gravel, the car fishtailing wildly. He was heading straight for the group of sailors who had come running from the parade deck to help. They froze, blinded by his headlights. "He's gonna hit them!" Jimenez screamed. I was the only one close enough to the exit. I couldn't reach the Peterbilt in time. I couldn't stop a car with my bare hands, but I could change its path. I ran, not away from the danger, but toward the narrow gap between the concrete barrier and my truck, the only exit route Sterling had. He was accelerating, the engine whining. He saw me step into the lane. He honked, but he didn't slow down. He thought I'd move. He banked on my fear. He bet wrong. I grabbed a heavy plastic road barrier, one of those water-filled orange barricades, and heaved it. It wasn't enough to stop a car, but I didn't need to stop it. I needed to blind it. I threw the barrier right as he approached. It bounced off his hood, splashing water across his windshield. Sterling swerved. Instinct took over. He jerked the wheel to the left to avoid the impact. The sedan skidded, lost traction on the mud, and slammed sideways into the rear tandem axles of my trailer. Crunch! The car crumpled against the heavy steel of the trailer frame. Glass sprayed. The horn blared continuously, a long, dying note. I was there before the wheels stopped spinning. I ripped the driver's side door open. The metal groaned in protest. Sterling was dazed, airbag deployed, blood trickling from his nose. He looked at me, his eyes unfocused. "You," he wheezed, "you wrecked my car." I reached in, unbuckled his seatbelt, and dragged him out. He tried to slap my hands away, flailing weakly. I spun him around and pinned him against the side of the sedan, holding him there until the MPs caught up. "I didn't wreck your car," I said, my voice low and hard. "You wrecked your career. Now stand still." The sergeant was there in seconds, cuffs out. "I'll take him from here, sir." He called me sir. I didn't correct him. I stepped back, wiping the rain from my face. My hands were shaking slightly. The adrenaline dump. I took a deep breath, smelling the ozone and the spilled radiator fluid. The Admiral walked over. He didn't look at the car. He didn't look at the wreckage of the stage. He looked at me. "You always did have a flair for the dramatic, Redline," he said quietly. "Just delivering flags," I said, leaning against the grill of my truck. "You know me, low profile." He snorted. "Right, low profile." He turned to the crowd of sailors and MPs who had gathered. Sterling was being marched away, still shouting about protocols and lawsuits. The Admiral raised a hand, and the silence returned. "Listen up," the Admiral barked. "What you saw here tonight stays here. But know this." He pointed at me. "This man is not a trespasser. He is not a vagrant. He is a brother. And tonight he reminded us of the first rule of command." He looked at Jimenez, who was standing there, wet and shivering, but safe. "Take care of your people," the Admiral said, "before you take care of yourself." He turned back to me. I need those flags, Jack. Ceremony is at 800. Can you get this rig unpinned? I looked at the flat tire. I looked at the mud. I looked at the dent in my trailer. I'll need a mechanic and a pot of coffee, I said. Done, the Admiral said. And Jack? Yeah? Come inside the tent. It's dry. We have things to talk about. I hesitated. My instinct was to run. To fix the tire, sign the papers, and disappear down the interstate before the questions started, before the memories got too loud. But then I looked at Jimenez. She walked up to me, hesitant. She held out a hand. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. I took her hand. It was small in mine, but her grip was strong. You stood your ground, sailor, I said. That's the hard part. The rest is just noise. I looked back at the Admiral. He was waiting. All right, I said. One coffee. Black. The coffee was hot, black, and tasted like burnt chicory. It was perfect. I sat on a folding chair inside the command tent, the heater humming in the corner, drying out my flannel shirt. The Admiral stood by the map table watching me. We hadn't said much since the medics cleared us. We didn't need to. There are things you can't say in a dry tent that you learned in the mud 20 years ago. You could stay, you know, the Admiral said, tracing a line on a map with his finger. The ceremony is in 2 hours. I have a seat with your name on it. Not Redline, your real name. I looked at the steam rising from my cup. My real name is on the side of my door, Casper. Independent contractor. That's enough for me. He smiled, a tired, knowing expression. You're a ghost, Jack. You show up, you stop a disaster, and you vanish. Is that the plan? Drive until the wheels fall off? The wheels are fine, I said, standing up. The mechanics you sent over did a hell of a job. New rim, new tire, even buffed the scratch on the trailer. I walked to the tent flap and looked out. The rain had stopped. The eastern sky was turning a bruised purple, the first hint of dawn bleeding through the storm clouds. The base was waking up. Sailors were moving in formation, white uniforms bright against the grey tarmac. I don't belong on a stage, Admiral, I said quietly. I never did. I belong out there, in the gaps, between the cities. The gaps are dangerous, he said. That's why someone has to be there, I replied. I drained the coffee and crushed the paper cup. Keep an eye on that kid, Jimenez. She stood tall when the timber cracked. You can't teach that. I'm promoting her, he said. And Sterling is done. I nodded. Good. I walked back to the truck. The air was crisp, washed clean by the storm. My Peterbilt sat idling in the lot, the diesel rumble a steady heartbeat that I felt in the soles of my boots. Petty Officer Jimenez was waiting by the driver's side door. She wasn't wearing her cover. Her hair was matted from the rain, but her eyes were clear. She didn't salute. She knew I wasn't an officer. She just extended a hand. Sir, she said, you forgot your thermos. She handed it to me. It was battered, scratched, and dented, just like the truck, just like me. Keep your head on a swivel, Jimenez, I said, taking it. And don't let anyone tell you that rank outweighs right. I won't, she said. Safe travels, Redline. I climbed up into the cab. The seat groaned as I settled in. It felt like putting on an old glove. I released the parking brakes, the hiss of air signaling the end of the night. I rolled toward the gate. The sun was just cresting the horizon now, hitting the wet pavement and turning the road into a river of gold. I didn't look back at the grandstands. I didn't look back at the flags I'd delivered. I checked my mirrors. The road ahead was empty. Just the white lines and the miles. I shifted into 8th gear, the turbo singing its high, thin song. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't a soldier anymore. I was just a trucker. But as I merged onto the interstate, watching the base fade into the rear view, I knew the truth. The uniform changes. The mission doesn't. I turned up the radio, leaned back, and drove. Thank you for watching. And if stories like this one about courage, sacrifice, and second chances speak to you, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us share more incredible true stories that honor the forgotten heroes among us.